Oh man, Konami dropped a ban list, didn't they? Welcome back to Top of the Deck, guys. Ace of Bats here, and I wanted to go ahead and try this one more time, the Odd Eyes deck profile. So obviously, you've probably seen my last profile here, and it had jokers and other things in it. Don't watch that one anymore. I decided to fix it, and we made it better. So we're gonna go ahead and do this one instead. Got it updated with the ban list, tried a couple of new engines. There's some new experiments that we're trying out, so wanted to go ahead and show that off to you guys. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first engine we're starting with, obviously the Odd Eyes Dragon. So we will have one Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon. It's kind of like your demi version of Cowboy for Game. When you do some damage, this one actually does 1200 points of damage to your opponent for every Odd Eyes monster in the scale. So it's pretty badass in that regard there, and it's a level 7, 2500 point body. It's basically the manga version of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Speaking of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, 2 copies of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. You know what this one does. Doesn't matter if you destroy an opponent's monster by battle or not. As long as you battle an opponent's monster, they take twice the damage. The only card I really like playing 3 of is 3 Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. It's got really awesome flavor text, and the more important thing is it has an excellent pendulum effect. When you lose an Odd Eyes card, when it's destroyed, you actually get to special summon an Odd Eyes monster straight out of the deck. So this really helps out with a lot of the Odd Eyes cards that you can't just normally pendulum summon, like the new level 8 ones that they really like to have. 2 copies of Persona Dragon. This one's actually a floating negate. You can tag an opponent's monster that came out of the extra deck. With this, it's a quick effect and negate their effects for the turn. It's like a walking Veiler. Yeah, Odd Eyes Lancer Dragon. This is the only non-pendulum monster I play in the deck just because it's a piercer and it's a big body, 3000 beater, and you can summon it very easily off of Arc Pendulum Dragon, so I like this. It's also a light, so if you do want to add a Chaos engine to the deck, you can. I just advise against it. And then for the Performapal engine, we want 2 copies of Odd Eyes Unicorn. This one's kind of niche, but it can pump up your Odd Eyes monsters by the attack points of a Performapal monster on the board, and you can get over bigger things like Masterpiece, for example, or occasionally even Supreme King Zark if you're still running into those. 1 copy of Odd Eyes Dissolver. It's a great target. This is an easy way into Vortex, especially if you're going out of the scales, and it technically counts as an Odd Eyes monster. So if you're using your Phantom Dragon, it can trigger the effect there. Odd Eyes Light Phoenix. It's a blocker in the scale, and it also can pump up your Performapal monsters too, so it can turn this bad boy into a 3000 point beat stick. 1 Odd Eyes Synchron actually turns your Odd Eyes for Performapal monsters into tuners. It's great if you have 2 level 7 or mismatched level Odd Eyes monsters on the board. Just turn one of them into a tuner. It's going to be level 1. You can sync that up with your level 7 monsters, get into your level 8 synchros a lot easier. And 1 Performapal Pendulum Sorcerer. It's searchable through Duelist Alliance, which is nice, and it'll search for all of these Odd Eyes monsters that have Performapal in their name. I like to pop whatever's in the scale with this bad boy, bring out Unicorn, and then bring out a low scale like Dissolver, fuse into Vortex Dragon, and then I can use this and this to increase the power of my Vortex Dragon up to 4000 attack points. You can only do this once while it's in the scale, but you can flip this back with Electrumite, and you can search another one very easily too, so I think it's a pretty good combo. And a newer engine we're working with, the 3 Supreme King Dragon Dark Worms. When it's summoned, normal or special, you get to search for a Supreme King monster. Well, specifically it's the Supreme King Gate monster, I should say, so that actually does make a bit of a difference, because in addition to the Supreme King Gates, I got 1 Infinity, 1 0. Most people are doing double 0. I wanted to try the Infinity, and because we do have some level 8s, I like to pendulum summon out of the hand. I've had some good use with the Infinity, and then popping it promptly afterwards, go ahead and replace it with an Odd Eyes card. It gets the job done, but Dark Worm can actually become a 1-card scale, which is pretty outstanding. Then 1 Supreme King Dragon Odd Eyes, because you can summon it while 13 is up, while Infinity is up, but I think it's actually a bit more important that you summon this bad boy off of Arc Pendulum Dragon, because then all your pendulum monsters double the battle damage they inflict, which I think is pretty dope. I have 2 Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser. This one does several things for us. It's a combo starter and extender, because when you have no monsters on the board, you can actually put this in your pendulum zone, and then immediately afterwards, you can special summon it to the zone, in addition to your normal summon or set or whatever. Since we only have the 1 normal summon in the deck, which is the Supreme King Dragon Dark Worm, This is a pretty good way to get into Electrumite early. Another thing about it is a dark level 4 Pendulum monster, so that helps with some of the extra deck plays we have for later. 2 copies of Astrograph Sorcerer. I couldn't squeeze in Chronograph just because there wasn't really a space for it. The level 7 on Astrograph actually synchronizes a lot better, and then it actually recurs a bit more advantage, especially off of Electrumite. Then for the spells, 2 copies of Ignite Reload. It is pretty much a 100% Pendulum deck, and anything else that you're going to draw to is going to be a search card anyway, so it's pretty handy. It's kind of like a mini upstart. 2 copies of Spiral Flame Strike. It's spot removal, and it searches for your Odd-Eyes Pendulum Dragons, your Odd-Eyes Phantom Dragons, as well as your Arc Pendulum Dragons, which are really, really nice. Duelist Alliance searches for Odd-Eyes Pendulum Dragon, searches for Odd-Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon, as well as Performapals Pendulum Sorcerer. So that's been pretty handy. Gets you into the right combos at the right time. Double Sky Iris, it protects literally every other scale in deck, as well as searching for every other scale in deck, which is really great. 2 Terraforming to search it. I don't play any of these at 3-0s because it really ruined the consistency and ruined a lot of my opening hands, so I decided against it. Foolish Burial, if you really want to get your Supreme King Dark Rebellion play started, in addition to the normal summon or whatever you have. If you don't have a normal summon, or you do have too many normal summons, this is a good place to go. 1 copy of Odd-Eyes Fusion, mainly because we do play Dissolver. There's no real reason to run multiple fusions, because Dissolver is actually a recurring version of the card. 1 copy of Eradicator, Epidemic Virus. I really wish this card was at 3, because I'd absolutely play it at 3. What it does is you tribute a 2,500 point attack monster that's dark, and what it's going to go ahead and do for you, you can either declare spells or traps, and you get rid of all your opponent's spell and trap cards that they draw into, or that they already have on the board, or that they have in their hands for the next 3 turns. It really ruins games. Copy of Full Force Virus over here. Really effective against decks that run a lot of 1,500 defense point or less monsters. You go ahead and trip this, and for the next couple of turns, you get to check your opponent's hands, all the monsters they control, and all the cards they draw until the end of the 3rd turn after this activation, and destroy all of them. Really gets rid of hand traps. It's pretty brutal. Deck Devastation Virus, another anti-hand trap card. Any monsters with 1,500 attack points or less for 3 turns, as long as you tribute something with 2,000 attack or more, that's a dark monster, which is pretty much the entire deck. It's pretty handy. And of course, that Young Crush Card Virus gets rid of all the monsters with 1,500 attack points or more in the hand, if I recall correctly. And also, it can force your opponent to go ahead and drop some more in the graveyard. Don't use this against Light Swarms, for God's sake, just don't do it, but otherwise, it's a pretty good card. Talking the extra deck, we'll go ahead and go into Synchros first. The first one I like to play is Clearwing Synchro Dragon, as well as Odd-Eyes Meteor Burst. These are actually pretty easy to get into if you have Synchron and either Persona or Light Phoenix on the board. That's their other job over here, to get into these. They protect you from various monster effects once during the battle phase, and then this one's just kind of general protection. So if you need more general protection, I'd go into this. If you just are afraid of Honest and don't want to run into Honest or Battle Fader, this is the one for the OTKs. Then 1 Supreme King Dragon Clearwing. Once we get Needle Fiber, this one's going to be Regeki on legs. Right now it's still Regeki on legs, but it's not quick play. It's just going to be on your turn. But so it's regular Regeki. No complaints. 2,500 point beater. Dark level 8 dragon monster. And Nirvana High Paladin. This is not my favorite. It's pretty easy to get into if you're using Supreme King Dragon Clearwing and Odd-Eyes Synchron, which is a recurring tuner, which is really nice. So that's a possibility there, but it's not my favorite. It'll probably get cut a little later on once I get something stronger. Going up to the XYZ monsters. 1 Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion. This is the closest thing you can get to in this deck to Lightning, really. I mean, I suppose you could play a Lightning package, but the extra deck's so tight, I don't recommend it. So this is easy to make, especially with the Supreme King Dragon Dark Worm, as well as the Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser. You got 5 level 4 monsters, you can get 2 of them on the board, you can do this. 1 Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. This is the other kind of pseudo cowboy for game, puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. So if you don't finish a full OTK, another great way to get him is just take 2 of your Odd Eyes monsters lying around, overlay them. This one's indestructible as long as it has XYZ material, so it can't be destroyed by Dark Hole, Regeki, any card effects, things like that. And when an opponent's card resolves, what it's going to go ahead and do, it's actually going to go ahead and burn them for 500 points. So it's a pretty good deal, especially if you have an extra Odd Eyes monster on the board. They try to Regeki you to get through. You can go ahead and replace that with Arc Pendulum Dragon, burn them for 500, and you're still going to have this bad boy on the board too. It's also a good target for Ziankai Magician, which I do side to go ahead and make Raging Dragon. Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, probably my bread and butter XYZ monster. If I don't go into this XYZ, I usually go into this one, because when this gets destroyed either by your effect, or your opponent's effect, or even if it gets link summoned away, point is, if it ends up in the graveyard from the field, you get to special summon any Odd Eyes monster out of your extra deck, which is really great. Odd Eyes Raging Dragon. Meteor Burst Dragon's another possibility too, but Raging Dragon's really good if you need to out something big, like Dark Destroyer, for example, or what's another good example? Masterpiece is another good example. This can also go into your Pendulum Zone afterwards too, which is pretty handy. And if you do manage to XYZ summon it properly by using an XYZ Dragon as well as a non-XYZ Dragon, overlay the two of them, make this using Ziankai Magician, and then it's an OTK onto itself, it's a win condition onto itself, it's outstanding. And the Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom, this can actually recur monster effects out of the graveyard, yours or your opponent's. It's kind of like a Monster Reborn for monster effects, and it overwrites its own effects, which are pretty cool. Another neat thing about it is you don't actually require a fusion card to get into it, you can actually contact fuse into it. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. It's got a pretty cool effect. It's a little niche, but you know, if you need to clear the board or just do a lot of damage in one shot, maybe push your OTK, it's a good one to go into with something like Dissolver, for example, or Odd Eyes Fusion. And then your prime Odd Eyes Fusion target is of course going to be Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, which, as you know, it's a compulse when it gets summoned, and also it's a negate. Negates hand traps, negates traps, negates spell cards, negates basically anything. So most of the other decks are going to be playing out of the hand. You're going to be playing on the ground pretty hard, but the stuff you can do on the ground is outstanding with this deck. One Proxy Dragon. I'll probably cut this. It doesn't really do much for the deck unless you just happen to have an Odd Eyes next to it, which is going to recur next turn. Tribute that. You can protect yourself from a board wipe. It's going to take them about 2 or 3 times to wipe your board. The new boss monster, Heavymetalfoes Electrumite. This card is bananas. I think Gwen Stefani already discussed that in another video, so we're not going to get into that right now. So what it does, when it's summoned, you get to add a pendulum monster from your deck to face up on your extra deck. If a pendulum monster leaves your pendulum zone, then you get to add a card from on top of your extra deck back to your hand to make your pendulum summoning easier. It's got 2 down pointing arrows, and if you do lose a pendulum card in the pendulum zone, you get to draw a card too. So a lot of shenanigans you can do with this, recur a lot of advantage, do a lot of damage really, really fast. The only chink in its armor is that it's an 1800 point beater, but if that's what you're using it for, to do some damage, you're using it wrong. And the last one, Decode Talker. It's generic, it's easy to make, it's got a good enough effect. You can pump it up by 500 points for every monster that it points to. Great, easy non-targeting removal. It also protects against targeting effects too, as long as you have something to tribute. Alright guys, but that is it for the deck profile. Tell me what you think, especially compared to the last version. That was awesome until the ban list drop. Yeah, just go ahead and comment in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And then, yeah, we'll see you next time. In the meantime, on that bombshell, Ace of Bats, signing out.